Hey everybody, it's Bernard Tompkins here today. I'm just going to take a moment to run through and explain the pre-printed clauses in the agreement of purchase and sale to make them a little bit easier to understand. So what is an agreement of purchase and sale? Well, it's a legal document where a buyer or a seller can make an offer, an official offer to purchase a property. It can go both ways. Buyer usually making the offer to the seller, but a seller can actually make an offer to a buyer as well. It can work both ways, even though buyer to seller is actually more common. So starting at the top of the agreement, what do we have? The parties to the agreement. So the buyer and the seller, legal names as shown on their identification. So what's on their license, what's on their passport, what's registered with the city on title, that needs to be the name that is on the document at the top. So even if the seller is selling under, say, probate, so they're acting as an executor, it would say sale, the estate of, and the legal name of that person that still owned the property. Going on down next, we got a legal description of the property. So we want to make sure that the property we're being purchased is the property that's mentioned in this agreement. So they do that by obviously street number, street name, city, province, postal code, and then they'll even go as far as saying fronting on. So fronting on the east side of Aurora Street. And then they'll use the legal description, which is found in the city. It can be found on the deed, I guess, city registration office, and then real estate agents have a program that they use that will tell them exactly what the legal description is that will be on that document for that property. So we're making sure that we're buying the property that we're looking at, so that everybody's on the same page. Next, we have price, deposit, and closing dates. So price, how much is being offered for the property? Deposit, how much money will be given up front if the offer is accepted by the buyers? So it just shows commitment to the agreement. Usually it's 5%, but that's not written in stone. That's just the industry standard, but it's totally negotiable. Some people are asking more, some people would take less. Obviously, the bigger the property, the more money out of pocket that is. And some people might just not have those funds available to them immediately. Also, those deposits in this section can be given herewith, upon acceptance, or as written as the agreement further down below. So herewith meaning I'm giving you the deposit with my offer. So as soon as you accept that offer, you have my deposit. Upon acceptance would be, it's stated right below, but upon acceptance is known to be 24 hours after the offer is accepted. And that's 24 hours. That's not 24 business hours. So if your offer is accepted on a Friday, you have 24 hours. So the next day the bank's not open and you can't get your deposit. Well, you're out of luck. So unless both parties don't have a problem with it, but if they do, they could back out of that deal because you didn't within the 24 hours. So, and then as written as the agreement could be later on down in the Schedule A, you could state, I'm going to give $5,000 upon acceptance, and then within 5 business days, another $15,000 or $50,000 or whatever it might be. So there's 3 options that you can pick there. Moving on down, where the deposit's going and how it's getting paid and what's done with the deposit. So right here, just stating it's going to be paid by negotiable check to the deposit holder, which, let's say the listing brokerage, which is usually who holds the deposit, is Keller Williams. Keller Williams would go into that spot. To be held in a trust account pending completion or other termination of this agreement, and to be credited towards the purchase price on completion. So once the transaction is complete, the monies that is held in trust will go towards the purchase price. For the purpose of this agreement, upon acceptance, this talked about the 24 hours I was talking about earlier. It just is saying that 24 hours means upon acceptance. The parties to this agreement hereby acknowledge, unless otherwise provided by this agreement, the deposit holder shall deposit the money in a trust account that is non-bearing interest, and interest shall not be earned or received or paid on this deposit. There are some brokerages that do have an interest-bearing trust account, and that would be stated later down below. in the schedules. So right under there it says the buyer agrees to pay the balance as more particularly set out in the Schedule A attached. So that's where the rest of the monies, that's not the deposit, is going to be stated, how it's going to be paid and when it's going to be paid. And that's going to be in the Schedule A that's at the end of the agreement. So right below here we have Schedule A. A is already inserted there. There's always a Schedule A, and usually there's going to be a Schedule B. So you can put a comma, put a B there, because there'll be a B attached usually. Schedule B is usually the listing brokerage will post it with their listing saying these are the things they want included in their offer. Say they have a bearing trust account, or they want to get permission to market the sale price of the property, or they want to put the seller is not liable, like an as is, where is sale. They want to put that in, and they're asking that anyone who puts in an offer add that Schedule B to their offer, or else they're not going to look at accepting them. And that's their suggestion. They can take it or leave it, but it doesn't mean you have to put in the offer with what they're suggesting. It's just it's what they want. So take it or leave it. That's where the schedules are. So you'll see the schedules later on below. Working our way down the agreement, next we have irrevocability. So irrevocability is the time frame in which the seller must respond to the offer. So I'm giving an offer to purchase a property from John Doe. That offer is irrevocable by tomorrow at 11:59. So John Doe has until 11:59 tomorrow to figure out if he wants to take it or leave it. After 11:59 tomorrow, that offer is done. He can accept it after that point. But also, as the buyer, you want to make sure that you're happy with that offer when it goes out, because once you send that offer to him and it's irrevocable by tomorrow at 11:59, you also can't take it back. So if he signs that offer, you're bound by those terms and conditions that you've agreed to in that agreement by signing under seal. So you just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the agreement if you went over it with your real estate agent or your lawyer, to make sure that you are going to be able to close those conditions or meet the timelines that are stated in, because you don't want to end up in a court battle for sure. Completion date, moving on down. The date the buyer officially takes possession. So it can't be on a weekend or a holiday, preferably also not on a Friday. Just because the lawyers are transferring paperwork back and forth, the banks are transferring money, they're looking up the odds and ends of the transaction, making sure that all the titles are changing hands and money are changing hands, and banks aren't open on holidays and or the weekends, so it's not going to work there. And then on a Friday, if there's any hiccups with the agreement, then you could run into problems where you don't have that wiggle room. If it was done on a Thursday, they could do it Friday morning. So just avoid Fridays, and no holidays, no weekends. So going down next, we have notices. This section just explains how documents are going to be served in the deal back and forth, ensuring both parties are kept informed. And usually it's the brokerage representative, which is the real estate agent. So if I'm representing you, I'm accepting your notices. So when I get an offer, we're selling your property, an offer comes in, they're not sending it directly to you, they're sending it to me, and then I'm going to show it to you. But as soon as I get it, it's considered received, because this section is saying that you are allowing me to receive these notices for you. Not allowed to do that if you're representing both sides as designated rep. So that would be multiple representation. They're not allowed to receive notices. And then also for a self-represented party, also not allowed to receive notices or give notices. Chattels. So going on to chattels, personal items. So chattels are movable items like appliances, curtains, movable things like maybe shelving in the garage that's like not bolted down, things that are paid off, that aren't financed. So these are items that would be paid off. So chattels included. What's included? So most people are going to put all window coverings, and they usually mention light fixtures because some people like to take them. but fridge, stove, washer, dryer, should be putting the model numbers in there, because I'm sure if it can't happen, it will happen. I've heard stories where they go in and there was a brand new washer and dryer when they bought the property, and next thing you know, they're moving in and there's some old washer and dryer that might be worth $60 sitting there, and they go, well, yeah, that's the washer and dryer. There was no model number. No, like, well, which washer and dryer was it? Was it a brand new GE, or was it whatever this thing is sitting there from the Flintstones? So you want to make sure that everything's covered there. Model numbers, serial numbers of fridges, stoves, washers, dryers, things that are movable. So going on to the next one, fixtures excluded. So items attached to the property that aren't included into the deal, because all fixtures are considered included in the deal. Anything that's fixed to the house, like bolted down, fixed, is built in, versus like a fridge, you can pull it out. Light fixtures, they're fixtures. They're supposed to be included, but this section would mention items that are fixtures that are excluded from the sale. So things they want to take with them. So they might say, they might be told, well, we'll sell you the house, but we want a fancy chandelier that was given to us by our grandmother in the living room. So you would put that in that section. Fancy chandelier, this looks like this, silver, blah, 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 living room, what room. This is a fixture that was excluded from the purchase of sale of the property. Next, moving down, we have rental items like hot water tanks or furnaces, could even be air conditioners. So this is where you would put those items there to let them know that they are rentals. They do not own them. You're not selling them, but they will be taking over those agreements and abiding by them after they purchase the property. They're assuming those agreements. Going down, HST. This confirms if HST applies to the transaction. So with the resale, so used residential property, HST is typically included in the sales price because it is exempt. But you'll see it included in. So rather than that, you don't have to worry about it. When you get into commercial properties, that's when HST might be more applicable. But for most residential property sales, it's going to be included in, and it's actually exempt from the HST. So that's why they just say it's included in. Next down, title search. Ensuring no legal issues like unpaid mortgages exist on the property before the sale. So the title search date is always going to be usually 2 weeks before closing date. You don't want it any later than that. It just gives the lawyers enough time to look in to make sure there's no liens or unpaid mortgages on the property. And 2 weeks is a decent amount of time for them to do that. So, and you do it 2 weeks before, because you don't want them to do say you have a 4-month closing and you put the title search for a week in, before even your inspections. Then you do your inspections and you weren't happy with the inspections. You end up walking away from the property. You've paid the lawyer now to do this title search, and it was kind of a waste of money. So you want to do it as late as possible, but not too late. You want to keep it within that 2 week. So in this portion, you're saying we're looking to buy the house as a single family residential property, and that's what we're looking to buy it for, and we're not expecting it to be anything else than single family residential. So, and the buyer is responsible for checking the zoning. Future use confirms the buyer accepts the property as is, and if they plan to change its use, they're responsible for checking the zoning. And that's where your real estate agents come in. They're going to look up the zoning for the property, or if it's a non-conforming, they need to look that up and give you advice on if you're purchasing a property that possibly is non-conforming, if it can continue to be used that way. Then you might have to discuss that with the lawyers. Title ensures the property is free from major restrictions that would affect its use. So sometimes a title can have restricted covenants against its use, maybe saying you can't build a fence along the back side of the property. There might be a restriction that follows the property like that. And it's a weird scenario, but it can happen. And then say you have dogs and you need a fence on the back of your property and you're not allowed to build one. That might affect the use that you want out of the property. Or maybe it says you can never have a pool. Like, I don't know. And you want a pool. So that would affect the use of the property for sure. Closing arrangements. Lawyers need to handle all the final procedures for a smooth closing. That's pretty much all that says, that the lawyers are going to handle all the final procedures for a smooth closing. Documents and discharge. Seller provides necessary documents, including clearing any existing mortgages. So this is just saying that the seller is going to provide necessary documents, including clearing any existing mortgages, and that'll be their lawyer. Inspection. So this is saying the buyer can inspect the property before finalizing the deal. And this statement actually also says that you're choosing not to get the property inspected, or as written below. So as these agreements work is anything written below takes precedent of anything written above. So even though that statement's there, when you end up putting in an inspection clause below, the inspection clause takes precedence over this clause, the way that it's written. Insurance. The seller must maintain insurance until the deal is closed. If damage occurs, the buyer can either walk away or fix it using the insurance. So just have to make sure that there is insurance on the property until it closes, just in case. You never know. Fire, flood, whatever. So you don't want to be purchasing a property that is full of water.